Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. Well, today we're going to work on week 3 of the Cozy Star Quilt Sew Along. Thank you all so much to everybody who has been sending in pictures of their blocks or posting them in the Facebook group. I've loved seeing them and all your fabric choices. And stay tuned at the end of this video and I'm going to do a quick little slideshow of everybody who has submitted blocks so far. And I'm going to pick randomly 2 winners from those of you who have submitted your pictures. So thank you so much for doing that. So if you are overseas, I will send you a gift card for Amazon. And if you are United States, I'm going to send you a little gift in the mail. And I will tell you at the end how to claim that if you are the winner. Again, I put everybody's name in a random comment picker, and I will pull those at the end. But stay tuned for that slideshow. But until then, let's get started sewing because we have 2 blocks to work on as usual. And don't forget, each block you have to make 2 of. So each week you're making 4 blocks, 2 different designs. All right, let's get started. Okay, welcome to Cozy Star Quilt Along, block number 5. So the first thing we're going to start with on this block is make a whole bunch of half square triangles. By the end of this sew along, I know there's some newer beginner quilters sewing along with us. Y'all are going to be half square triangle experts. So the first step is to make the 4 at a time method. That's step 1 in the instructions. And step 2 is the 8 at a time. So to make the 4 at a time, you're just going to lay your background square on top of your colored square. And we're going to sew all the way around the perimeter of this square, 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then for the 8 at a time, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put the background on top of the colored piece, right sides together. And you're going to draw an X corner to corner, just like this. And we're going to sew a 1/4 inch on both sides of these lines. Okay? So I'm showing you this at the same time, even though this is step 1 and this is step 2, because I'm going to go ahead and sew these both at the same time just to save a little bit of time. Because we have so many to make. I believe we have already done both methods. Beginners usually learn by making 2 half squares triangles at a time, where you have 2 pieces like this and you lay them together, draw a line down the middle, sew on either side of the line, and then you get 2. So hopefully showing you the 4 and the 8 has made you guys a little less scared of taking on a quilt pattern that has lots of half square triangles, because this way makes it a little bit faster. I know there's a few patterns out there I've seen that have like 300 half square triangles doing the 2 at a time method. And boy, that is tedious. So if you can make it go faster by doing the 8 at a time or 4 at a time, it's a little less daunting. I know there's at least there's several patterns over the last couple years that have been really popular that I have not made yet, so I'm not sure what method they use, but like the exploding heart quilt that's popular everywhere, that is filled with half square triangles. And we just did a half square triangle quilt. Tracy Perks, she does all half square triangles in her patterns and squares. So if you know how to do the math, which is easy to find a calculator online, and you want to convert some of those patterns into the 8 at a time to make things go faster, or the 4 at a time, hopefully this project has given you the confidence to sew these. I know when I was a beginner quilter, I wouldn't have even looked at a pattern that had more than like 30 or 40 half square triangles. But they really are the basic building block of a lot of pattern, or a lot of blocks. So don't shoot me for having you guys make a bunch, is all I'm saying. Also, a bunch of you submitted pictures. Thank you so much for me to see of your blocks so far. I love your fabric choices. Keep them coming, keep them coming. I love seeing them. It really makes a pattern designer happy to see their pattern in a way that they didn't imagine with different fabrics. So I love that. Okay, so for the 8 at a time, I should have started with the 4 at a time, but I'm going a little out of order. Step 2, you're going to want to cut it vertically and then horizontally. And then we can go back and cut it on the diagonal lines. That way, if something like that happens where something shifts, the horizontal lines are already, the diagonal lines are already there, so you can always go back, and if you had to take these apart, you could cut them individually, although that takes more time, but you can, something like this. But the vertical and horizontal is a little bit harder to do, so I do those first, and then I go back and do the diagonal. Okay, so those are done. Now I'm going to go back to step 1 and cut up the one where we sewed all the way around the perimeter, the 4 at a time. So this one, we're just going to cut corner to corner. We're not cutting the smaller one horizontally and vertically because we just want 4 out of this and not 8. And don't forget, you are making 2 of each of these blocks. We're just doing 1 together today. But I give you all the instructions per each block and then go back and make a second one. Or you can just double it up and do, you know, all the blocks or chain piece and do all your pieces for both blocks all at once. Now I'm going to finger press all these towards the darker fabric, which in this case is the red. And then I'm going to press them. And then I'm going to trim them down to the size that's listed in the pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera because watching me press 12 half square triangles is going to be kind of like watching paint dry for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and press these and I'm going to trim them down. I'm not going to trim them on camera so that way, you know, the sizes in the pattern that you guys paid for is not given away. And then we'll come back and we'll sew some stuff. So go ahead and press all these towards your darker fabric. If you're working with red and white, towards the red. If you're working with blues, because a lot of you are working with blues, do it towards the blue. Trim them down to the size in the pattern in steps 1 and 2, which are the same size. And then we'll come back and we'll sew some stuff. Okay, now that we've made all of our half square triangles, let me grab that one over here. Came out looking like this. You should have a whole bunch of these. Now we are going to make the next step in step 3 is to make our flying geese. So you see I've got them paired here. They look like eyeballs, don't they? I just noticed that. We're going to make 2 of the white background with the red. We're going to make 4 of the white background with the green, and we're going to make 4 of the green background with the red squares. Okay, so we're going to do these all at once, just like we did the half square triangles all at once. I'm going to do one side of each one. I'm going to trim them all, press them all, and then we're going to do the other side of each one. So I'm going to lay one of these squares each aside. And we're going to sew corner to corner on all of these. And then we're going to trim a 1/4 inch away from our sew line. And then press this out to make our flying geese. But don't forget you're making 2, 4, and 4. I'm only going to show you one of each just to save a little bit of time. And with the magic of television, I always wanted to say that. I will finish the rest of them off camera and then have them ready to put the block together. And you can draw the line corner to corner on these if you want, if that makes it easier. I've got this seam guide tape here down on my machine, and I just follow the line on my machine, which I need new seam guide tape because this is popping up. If you have never used the seam guide tape, I do recommend it. But again, you can do whatever method works best for you. If you decide to try out the seam guide tape, it's the diagonal seam tape from Cluck Cluck Sew. You can get it at most quilt shops. I do normally sell it in my shop as well. I don't have any right now, I don't think, though, in my shop. But you just line up there's a red line in the center. I don't know if you guys can see that in the video. And you just line up your needle with that red line, and then you put your tape down. And then the black lines on either side of that are 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I really like it because it gives you a 1/4 inch and it gives you like that center line to do these smaller, well, these aren't half square triangles, but these smaller pieces where you have to sew corner to corner. So flying geese or half square triangles. Now, if I have bigger pieces, like when we did the 8 at a time, I definitely draw the lines because this isn't long enough for me to see from one side of the square to the other. But these smaller bits just speeds it up a little bit if you don't have to draw the line in all of them. But if that's what you like to do, definitely do that. Okay, now you can rotary cut these, or I just cut them with scissors just to make it quicker and easier. I'm gonna press these. Now, of course, you don't have to use magic juice. You guys just know that I love my magic juice. So, and if you don't know what magic juice is because you're just finding this video now, it's the Acorn Easy Press Precision Piecing Pen and Solution. And if you don't know what all that is, because I totally understand if you don't, it's definitely a mouthful. If you look on my channel under videos, do a search. I have one. If you just search for easy, it'll pop up, and it's about the Easy Press pen, and it shows you what it is and how it works. And no, I don't represent that company at all. I just really love the product, and I use it for all my blocks and all my piecing. So I just mention it because almost every video I put up where I use that, somebody asks me about it. So I thought I'd be proactive and just mention what it is. If you are just finding this video now and would like to join the Cozy Star Quilt Along, you can go to the details below this video, the gray box below the video, and there is a link to my website where you can still purchase the pattern. You'll get all the patterns that we've done to date, and my squares just stuck to the bottom of my wool mat. You'll get all the patterns that we've done to date so far, and then, of course, you know, next week you'll get 2 more patterns. Okay, match the colors back up here. There we go. Okay, so now we're just going to add the squares to the other side of the rectangle, so corner to corner. And don't forget to check your pattern to see what size these need to be and how many of each one, to remind yourself. And don't forget, when I talk about these things, they are per block. But for the quilt, you need to make 2 of each one. So if you're making all these flying geese and you want to make them all for both blocks right up front, you'll have to double the amounts. So like this one, it needs to be 2. So for both blocks, you'll need 4. But I don't want to confuse that all now. Just you'll have to double the amounts listed in the pattern instructions. And one last one. We will trim these and press them, and then I'll show you what to do next. I hope you guys are enjoying this sew along. I'm enjoying sewing it with you guys. After we get done with this sew along, I have 3 new patterns in the works, so I am really looking forward to sharing those with you guys. So I hope you'll stick with me to the end, and maybe the last week of the sew along, I'll give you guys a little sneak peek of my newer patterns that are going to be coming out. we go. And I'm just going to grab my pressing mat. We're going to give these a press. And then we'll move on to the next step. Now don't forget to make 2 of the red and white per block, 4 of the green and white per block, and 4 of the green and red per block. All right. Just take this mat away. And I'm going to go finish the rest of my flying geese, and I'm going to come back with the magic of TV and show you how to put these together. Okay, so we're now at step 4 of this block, and as you can see, the first thing we need to do is take our 2 red and white flying geese and put them together, and that's going to be the center of our block. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our red and green and our green and white, and we're going to make a chevron type shape. And you're going to make 4 of these, and these are going to become the middle units all around the block. So let's go ahead and do these all at the same time. All right, that's the center of our block. And this is going to be the middle pieces, middle units of our block. So because this one has a point right here, I'm going to lay the green and white piece on top so I make sure I don't cut off that point. All right, so I'm gonna press both of these. I'm gonna press this one towards the green, and the red and white, I'm just gonna press one direction. Obviously both directions, they're the same color, so it doesn't really matter which way you press them. Grab my mat. So you should have 4 of these and 1 of this guy right here for the middle. Okay, so once those are done, you can set those aside. We're good with those for the moment. And now we're gonna make the corner blocks, and I made one ahead just to show you. It's gonna look something like this, and that's what all those half square triangles are for. So I'm going to line these up. I'm going to use this as my guide, so I make sure I turn these the correct direction. So you should have 2 reds touching here, and then the green and the white touching here. Okay, so you're going to make 4 of these, and that's going to be your corners of this block. So I'm going to build these like a 4 patch. So the bottom 2 together. And I'm going to finger press this for now towards the green. And then we're going to sew these top 2 together. Okay. And I'm going to press this top one opposite of the green. So I press the green to the right. I'm going to press the top one to the left. And now I'm going to sew these together to make my 4-patch. And then we'll press the whole thing once we've finished sewing this together. So making sure those points in the middle match up. And I'm going to finger press this, pressing down towards the green. You can really press these any way you want, but you'll thank me later if you press towards the pieces that have less seams, because your block will lay a lot flatter. So you're welcome. Just kidding. No, you can press these any way you want, really. It's not really going to make a difference when we put the block together, but I just find it a little bit easier if we press towards the solid fabric rather than all these bits that have the seams. So okay, so that is one of our corners. You need 4 of those. So now we should have 4 corners, which I've done some of the corners ahead of time. Oop, gonna turn that one. Make sure the greens are all on the inside. And these guys, the chevrons, the whites are all going to go to the outside of the block. Just like that. And then our red and white center is going to go right there. So you can kind of see what that's going to look like. So we're just going to start sewing these together in rows. And then once our rows are built, sew the rows together to make the block. There's a lot of like bits to this block, but it's really, if you break it down, hopefully it doesn't seem that hard. This is another one of those blocks that I think looks harder than what it is. I'm just double checking to make sure I have my green on the inside. But that's kind of a nice thing, because if somebody says, wow, how did you do that? You can be like, oh, it's really hard. All right, now the center. Now the center one, I'm going to sew with the middle outer section on top, so I don't lose that point with the flying geese there. It's so easy to cut off flying geese points. Okay, that looks good. Now that part right there is going to be really bulky. So if you're somebody who likes to press open, that might be a good time to do that. I don't really like to press open unless I absolutely have to. So we'll see once we sew this together if we need to. Or once I press it, I should say. I'm going to give it a press first, one direction, and see how it goes. Alright, and now the top row. There we go. So I'm going to give these a press and come back and sew all these rows together, and then I'll show you my final block. But that's somewhat what it's going to look like. Okay, here is block 5 all done. Now I'm going to get all my pieces, parts, and we will start block 6. Okay, for block 6, the first and second step are exactly like the first and second step of block number 5. So I decided to go ahead and sew these ahead of time and just show you there isn't much difference, except we trim these to a different size than we did in step 5, which is listed in the pattern. And instead of having all 12 be red square or red and white half square triangles, we've got 8 red and white half square triangles, and we've got 4 green and white. So that's the only difference. So I went ahead and just made these rather than having you watch me do the same thing that we just did in block 5 over again. So step 1 is the 4 at a time. Step 2 is the 8 of the time half square triangles. And like I said, same thing as in block 5. So if you need to watch that again, to a refresher on how to make these, you can do that. But I decided to go ahead and make them because I didn't figure that you guys needed to watch me do the same thing again that we just did. Just again, be sure that you check the sizes in the pattern because these are a different size than in block number 5. Okay, so with that being said, these done. This block is a much quicker block, less complicated for sure. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sew the corners of this block. It's the first thing we need to do. So in this one, we're going to have the green again touching the center and the reds touching each other. And I just wanted to note that in the pattern there is a little oopsie when I have showing putting this part of this block together, the white is touching the center. I have it turned, this piece up here turned. I'm going to fix that in the pattern, but I wanted to let you know because I had already sent out the pattern before I saw it. So this definitely has to be touching in the center, and the second picture where it shows it all put together is correct. It's just the first picture is wrong. It has the white going towards the center. So make sure you take note of that. Otherwise, we're going to make 4 pieces just like that. So 4 patches again, very similar to the last block. That's kind of why I put these 2 blocks this week, because they're very similar the way they're built as far as the half square triangles and the corner pieces. So I'm going to sew these 2 together. And I apologize for that little oopsie there in the pictures. And I will send you guys out a corrected pattern as soon as I can. All right. So I'm going to sew these together, and then I'll press it all with the iron after I've sewn this together. All right. So let's give this a press, and then we're going to make 3 more of these. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera after I press this, and then we'll come back and put the block together. Yes, put the block together. I said this is a much quicker, easier block. Once you've got the half square triangles made and you make these corners, then we're putting the block together. So this one is much quicker. Should take you a lot less time. The half square triangles are going to be the longest part of this, and it's not because they're hard, it's just because they take time to make, to press, and to trim. So, all right, that is one of our corners. I'm going to go ahead and make the other 3, come back, and then we'll build the block. Okay, to put this block together, now that we've got our corners done, all you need to do is use your background rectangle size in the pattern. Sew these together. That will be the top and the bottom row. Went ahead and put one together just to show you what that's going to look like. So that's my bottom row. And then the center of this block is just going to be 2 more of the rectangles and then this center red square. So I'm going to go ahead and sew that together, sew this together, and then we can put the block together. So all very similar techniques to the previous block, but with a lot less pieces. So that's why I thought these 2 blocks paired together really well, because they were built very similarly, but this was a much simpler version of the previous block. So hope to give you one a little less complicated after that last one. All right. So I'll press that in a minute at the ironing board, and we'll sew this together. Again, make sure the green here is touching the center, the green square. Alright, now I'm going to grab my ironing stuff. We're going to give these a good press, and then we'll put this block together. Simple as that. A nice, easy block after that last block, number 5. Just that one correction to this block. Like I said, I apologize for that picture being wrong, but hopefully you looked at the other pictures to see that the 2 reds should be touching. And I will send out a pattern correction. You will probably have it before I even get this video up, if I have the time to fix that, but I will make it a priority. All right. All right, there we go. Just got to put this block together, and then at the end here, don't forget to stay tuned for the slideshow. And I'm also going to announce, I'm going to use the random comment, or I shouldn't say random, but random name picker. So I've got all the names of the folks who submitted pictures. Thank you for that. And I will randomly pick 2 names to win a little prize. And I'm going to do the same next week as well. And that'll be for this week's blocks. And then the following week I'll do a little prize. And then at the very end, after the final week, I will draw a kind of larger prize for finishing the whole quilt top. But I'll give you guys a few weeks for that, and I will talk about that in the last video, because I definitely want to see your finished quilts. So these are kind of like mini prizes, and you'll get a bigger prize. There'll be one kind of grand prize at the end. And what I mean by finished quilt is it doesn't have to be fully quilted and bound, just the whole quilt top done. So don't think that you have to rush and get the whole quilt bound and, or quilted and bound and all that. So, but again, I'll talk about that more on the final week when I assemble this quilt. Okay, so all I have to do is give this a press. But this is what this block looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and press this, come back, show you both the blocks, and show you the slideshow and talk about the winners. Well, thanks for sewing along with me again today. So here is block 5, all finished and pressed. And don't forget to make 2 of these. I love that one. And here is block 6. And don't forget about this piece in the diagram being turned. I'm going to fix that in the pattern, but just in case you don't see my email or see the new copy before you sew this, hopefully you've seen this before you've turned it the wrong way. I apologize for that. Sometimes mistakes happen. I try my best to do all the editing, but that one slipped through the cracks, so I apologize for that. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and do a slideshow of all the folks who sent in blocks. This will be about a minute long. And at the end, I'll come back and I will have picked randomly the names. I'm going to do that while the slideshow is playing and let you know who has won the first round of prizes for week 1 and week 2, 1 person per week. All right, stay tuned. Well, thank you so much to everybody who submitted pictures. Those were so fun to see. I love that. All right, so the 2 winners for week 1 and week 2, 1 for each week. The first one is Elaine, and the second one is Anne-Marie. So if you 2 could please email me, stephanies.stitches@yahoo.com. You probably have my email already because I've been sending you blocks, but I will put it right here on the screen just in case. Go ahead and email me and let me know your address if you're in the US, and if you're not, just send me your email address and or remind me that you're not in the US and I will send you an Amazon gift card. All right, well, thanks so much for sewing along. I can't wait till next week. Next week is the last 2 blocks. I can't believe I'm saying the last 2 blocks already. The last 2 blocks, and then the week after that, we'll put the whole thing together. One note about that, I've been showing you guys the green and red as we go because they're better contrast on screen than the blues. But for the very last week, I'm going to put the blue together for the final put together, because the reds, I'm only making 1 of each one, and I'm going to make a smaller piece with that. And the blues are going to actually be my whole big quilt. So just so you know, when we get to the final week, it'll be the blues I'm showing you. So just a heads up on that now, because I know, like I said, the red and green are a little bit more contrast on screen, and that's why I've been sewing them. But I am doing the blues for my whole big quilt, so I'm really excited about that. The other one, I'm going to have to come up with another sort of block because we have 8 blocks. So I'm going to have to do a 9th block. So I have a 9 patch sort of quilt, and I'm going to make it into like a smaller couch throw for my kids for the holiday season. So anyway, that's all for today. I will see you guys really soon. Have a wonderful week. It is Labor Day weekend here in the States, and I believe it is a holiday in Canada as well. So have a wonderful, safe holiday, and I will see you guys next Sunday. Take care. Bye.